Nora lay in bed that night, the shadows in her room swirling like whispers of the unknown. The weight of the glass eye felt heavier than ever, pulsing with an unsettling energy as she fought to close her eyes. Every creak of the old house felt magnified, her heart racing with every sound. Just when she thought she might drift off, a sudden crash echoed through the halls, jolting her awake. Fear coursed through her veins as she sat up, straining to hear through the oppressive silence that followed. Gathering her courage, Nora slipped out of bed and tiptoed toward her door. She opened it a crack, peering into the dimly lit hallway. Shadows danced ominously on the walls, and the air felt electric with tension. The crash had come from downstairs, and an instinct screamed at her to stay put. But curiosity pulled her forward. She crept down the staircase, each step feeling like a betrayal of her instincts. The further she descended, the stronger the sensation of being watched enveloped her, as if the very walls were alive and aware of her presence. As she reached the bottom, the flickering light from the living room illuminated the chaos before her. Books lay scattered on the floor, and a chair had toppled over. Its legs splayed like a dying insect. Nora's heart raced as she stepped cautiously into the room, her breath catching in her throat. Suddenly, she caught sight of movement out of the corner of her eye. A figure slipped through the shadows, vanishing into the darkness of the hallway. Panic surged through her. "Who's there?" she called, her voice shaky. Silence enveloped her once more, thick and suffocating. Just as she turned to retreat, the glass eye, now glowing faintly, drew her attention. It seemed to pulse with a life of its own, beckoning her to approach. Nora hesitated, the memory of the note flooding her mind. The eye has just begun to see. With every instinct screaming at her to run, she felt an inexplicable pull toward it. The shadows twisted around her, and the faintest whisper brushed against her ear, promising secrets and horrors yet to be unveiled. Compelled by an unknown force, Nora reached out for the eye, and as her fingers brushed against its cool surface, a rush of visions flooded her mind. She saw flashes of students at Evergreen Academy, faces twisted in fear, eyes wide with terror, and blood-soaked hallways. She gasped, jerking her hand away, but the images continued to play in her head like a haunting film reel. The sinister whispers intensified, filling her mind with dread and urgency. "You must act, or it will claim you next." Desperation clawed at her chest as she stumbled back, the weight of the eye's curse pressing down on her. She turned to flee, but the hallway stretched impossibly long, the exit slipping further from her reach. The whispers morphed into screams, echoing in her ears as the walls closed in around her. She felt the presence of something ancient and malevolent, watching, waiting for her to make a mistake. The more you resist, the stronger it becomes. Nora's breath quickened as she dashed back up the stairs, her mind racing with fear. She burst into her room, locking the door behind her. But the sinister energy lingered, suffocating in its intensity. The glass eye lay on her desk, pulsing rhythmically, as if it had a heartbeat of its own. Sweat dripped down her back as she paced the room, her heart pounding in her ears. The walls felt like they were closing in, the shadows creeping closer, taunting her with their presence. Just as she thought she might break down, the eye flashed brightly, illuminating the room in an eerie glow. Nora froze, staring at it in horror as a chilling realization dawned on her. It wasn't just a relic. It was a portal into something dark and unspeakable, feeding off her fears and drawing her deeper into its grasp. The door rattled violently, and a voice, low and guttural, whispered through the wood. "You can't escape what's coming, Nora." The voice reverberated through the door, chilling Nora to her core. She pressed her back against the wall, fighting the urge to scream. The shadows outside seemed to pulse with life, writhing as if they had a mind of their own. Panic surged through her, propelling her to the window. She yanked it open, the cold night air rushing in. But her escape was cut short by another shuddering knock on the door. "Let me in, Nora. You're running out of time," the voice whispered again, this time more insistent. Desperation clawed at her heart. She knew she couldn't open the door. Whatever was on the other side was not just a manifestation of her fears. It felt real and malevolent. Her mind raced back to the visions she'd seen. The students, the blood, the chaos. Was this what awaited her if she succumbed to the eye's influence? She turned to the glass eye, its glow intensifying, and suddenly felt an unsettling connection to it. It wanted her to embrace the darkness, to wield its power. But at what cost? As the knocking intensified, Nora felt a wave of defiance wash over her. "I won't let you in," she shouted, her voice cracking. The knocking stopped abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence that made her skin crawl. Heart pounding, she glanced back at the eye, and in that moment, a terrifying thought crossed her mind. What if it was connected to the voice? What if it was feeding off her fear, her doubts? She took a step back, feeling the pressure of its gaze on her, the whispers urging her to unlock her potential. In a sudden rush of courage, she snatched the eye off her desk, holding it tightly in her hands. "I won't let you control me," she declared, feeling a spark of defiance ignite within her. But as she spoke, the eye emitted a blinding flash, engulfing her in a whirlwind of visions once more. She found herself standing in the middle of a chaotic scene, surrounded by students screaming and fleeing from something unseen. The ground shook beneath her, and a shadow loomed in the distance, stretching like fingers reaching for her. Nora felt the weight of despair pressing down on her as she watched the chaos unfold. The figure in the distance transformed into a monstrous silhouette, its eyes glowing with the malevolence. In that moment, she realized that this wasn't just a vision, it was a warning. The darkness she had been feeling was real, and it was coming for her and everyone at Evergreen Academy. The whispers returned, more urgent than ever. "You must stop it, Nora. Only you can break the curse." Gritting her teeth, she focused on the figure, willing herself to confront whatever it was. "I won't be your pawn," she shouted, her voice echoing through the vision. The shadow paused, as if taken aback by her defiance. For a fleeting moment, Nora felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe she could turn this around. Maybe she could find a way to control the eye instead of letting it control her. Suddenly, the vision shifted violently, and she was back in her room, the eye still clutched in her hands. Heart racing, she took a deep breath and made a decision. If she was going to stop this darkness, she needed to confront the truth behind the eye and the shadow it held. She had to seek out the other students who had been affected, those who might share her burden. If the curse was real, then together they might stand a chance. With newfound determination, Nora grabbed her phone and started a group chat with her friends, Alina, Mira, and Bella. She hesitated before typing, her fingers hovering over the screen. "Something is coming for us. We need to meet. It's urgent." She hit send, her heart pounding as she waited for their responses. As the notifications chimed in, she felt a mix of relief and dread. They were all experiencing something strange. But would they believe her? Within minutes, the responses flooded in, filled with confusion and concern. Alina's message came through first. "What's happening? I thought I was the only one." Mira quickly followed with, "I keep having these nightmares. It feels so real." Bella added, "I found something weird in the library. We need to talk." As she read their messages, Nora's anxiety began to mix with hope. They were all in this together. But what if the darkness had already begun to take hold of one of them? Nora glanced at the glass eye, its glow pulsating ominously, a reminder of the danger they faced. If she was going to protect her friends, she needed to uncover the truth behind the eye's curse and the horrific force threatening to tear them apart. The clock ticked ominously, each second echoing the urgency of their situation. The air thickened with tension as she prepared to meet them, knowing that whatever they uncovered could change everything. That night, as they gathered in a dimly lit corner of the campus, Nora felt a sense of foreboding settle over them. They shared their experiences, visions, whispers, and the overwhelming sense of being watched. The tension crackled in the air as they realized they were all connected by the glass eye's curse. "We need to find out where it came from," Alina suggested, her voice steady, but her eyes betraying her fear. "Maybe it holds the key to stopping whatever is coming." Nora nodded, her heart racing as she considered the implications. But even as she agreed, a chill washed over her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The shadows around them seemed to deepen, creeping closer as if alive with sinister intent. The whispers grew louder, swirling around them like a storm, echoing the words of the monstrous figure she had seen in her vision. "You cannot escape what's coming." The wind howled through the empty courtyard, sending shivers down Nora's spine. The group sat huddled in silence, their faces pale in the dim light of the lamppost. Bella, usually the most level-headed, looked visibly shaken as she handed a crumpled page from an old book to Nora. "I found this in the restricted section of the library. It talks about an ancient artifact that sounds a lot like your eye." Nora scanned the text, her hands trembling. The description matched her glass eye perfectly. The same eerie glow, the same malevolent power that cursed those who dared to use it. Mira's voice broke the silence. "What does it say about breaking the curse?" Nora flipped the page, her eyes narrowing as she read. It says, "The eye must return to its rightful place before the full moon, or the one who possesses it will be consumed by it." A cold dread settled over her. The full moon was only days away. As her heart raced, she felt the weight of the eye growing heavier in her pocket, its glow pulsing with an ominous rhythm. "Consumed?" Alina asked, her voice trembling. "What does that even mean?" Nora swallowed hard, unable to tear her gaze away from the page. "It means it will take over me completely. My body, my mind. It'll be lost to whatever dark force controls it." The group stared at her, the weight of their situation sinking in. Bella leaned in closer, whispering, "We have to act fast. We need to figure out where this rightful place is and return the eye before it's too late." But as Nora clutched the glass eye in her hand, she felt an insidious voice whispering in the back of her mind. "You can't trust them. They will betray you." Her breath hitched, and for the first time, she felt a deep, terrifying urge to keep the eye, to wield its power. But whose voice was it? Hers or the eye's? Nora tried to shake off the unsettling feeling, but the whispering grew louder, more insistent. The eye throbbed in her hand, its glow flickering like a heartbeat. She could feel it trying to take control, invading her thoughts. "We don't have much time," she muttered, slipping the eye back into her pocket. The others exchanged worried glances. Mira grabbed her arm. "Nora, are you okay? You're acting strange." Nora forced a smile, trying to hide the panic building inside her. "I'm fine. We just need to figure this out." But as they hurried back toward the library, she couldn't ignore the sinister pull of the eye. Every step she took felt heavier, as if the ground was dragging her deeper into something dark and inescapable. That night, the moon hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows across the school grounds. Nora sat alone in her dorm room, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes looked hollow, almost unfamiliar. She could hear the others down the hall, planning their next move, but their voices felt distant, like echoes in a dream. She clutched the eye tightly, feeling its power coursing through her. "You don't need them. You have all the power you need." Suddenly, a loud knock broke her trance. It was Alina. "Nora, we need you downstairs. Bella found something important." Nora hesitated for a moment, then stuffed the eye into her pocket and followed Alina. But deep down, she knew something had shifted, something dangerous. As they descended the stairs, she couldn't shake the feeling that the eye was slowly consuming her. And soon, it would be too late. As Nora and Alina approached the library, they found Bella hunched over an old, dusty tome. Her face was pale, her fingers trembling as they hovered over the pages. "Look at this," Bella whispered, her voice barely audible. The page was filled with cryptic symbols and a drawing of the glass eye, its sinister glow etched in ink. "It's a ritual," Bella said, her voice shaking. "A way to break the eye's hold. But it comes at a cost." Nora's heart raced. The eye in her pocket pulsed with anger, as if it knew what Bella had found. "What kind of cost?" Alina asked, her eyes narrowing. Bella hesitated, her voice cracking. "Someone has to sacrifice something precious, or the eye will claim another host." Nora's blood ran cold. She realized with growing dread that the eye had no intention of letting her go. The room fell silent as the weight of Bella's words sank in. Alina paced the room, her face twisted in frustration. "So, what's the plan? We just sacrifice someone and hope this nightmare ends?" Nora clenched her fists, feeling the eye's dark presence growing inside her. "We don't have a choice," she said, her voice strained. "If we don't stop this now, more people will die." Bella looked at Nora, her eyes filled with fear and sympathy. But who will it be? Who's willing to give up everything? Before anyone could answer, the door creaked open, and Principal Rosewood stepped inside. "I think I can help you with that," she said, her voice cold and unsettling. A twisted smile spread across her face, and the room grew colder as she stepped forward, her gaze fixed on Nora. It was clear that not everyone in the school was who they seemed. Principal Rosewood's chilling smile lingered as she approached the group. "I've known about the eye for far longer than you realize," she said, her voice low. "It's been a part of this academy's history for centuries. And now, it's time for the cycle to begin again." Nora felt a knot tighten in her stomach as Rosewood's words settled. The eye pulsed violently in her pocket, reacting to the principal's presence. "What do you mean?" Alina asked, her voice defiant but shaken. Rosewood turned her gaze to Nora, her eyes darkening. "The eye demands a sacrifice. It always has. But this time, the ritual won't just require something precious, it requires the one who carries it. Nora's heart skipped a beat. She realized with a sinking horror that the eye had chosen her not just as its host, but as its final offering. "You're lying," Nora said, her voice trembling. But deep down, she knew Rosewood was telling the truth. The eye had been feeding off her, growing stronger with each vision. Now it was ready to complete its dark purpose. Alina stepped forward, her face set with determination. "We won't let that happen," she said firmly. "We'll find another way." Rosewood's smile widened, but there was no warmth in it. "There is no other way. Either you give the eye what it wants, or it will take everything from you. Everyone you care about, gone." The threat hung heavy in the air. Nora felt the weight of her friend's eyes on her, the unbearable pressure of the choice she was being forced to make. As the tension mounted, the walls of the room seemed to close in. Time was running out. Nora's mind raced as the weight of Rosewood's words crushed her resolve. The eye pulsed violently in her pocket, and with each beat, she could feel her connection to it deepening. Was she really bound to this relic's dark fate? Her friend stared at her, waiting for a plan, but no words came. The silence stretched on, suffocating. Rosewood tilted her head, as if enjoying the torment. "Time is slipping away, Nora. The eye is hungry." Before anyone could react, the windows shattered, glass flying everywhere. The temperature in the room dropped, and the lights flickered. The eye began to glow in Nora's pocket, its energy surging through her body, filling her with dread. "Nora!" Alina shouted, but her voice felt distant. Nora's vision blurred as a dark shadow crawled across the floor, reaching out for her. The choice was hers, but at what cost? Without warning, the ground beneath them trembled. Rosewood stepped back, her eyes narrowing as the darkness enveloped the room. "It's too late," she whispered, almost in awe. "The eye has chosen." Nora's heart pounded, but she couldn't move. The shadow stretched closer, cold and unyielding. Alina and the others screamed her name, but they seemed so far away, as if trapped behind an invisible wall. The eye glowed brighter, pulsing with power. Suddenly, the darkness reached her, wrapping around her like a vice. Nora gasped as her body stiffened, the world around her fading into nothingness. The last thing she saw before everything went black was Rosewood's smile, victorious and sinister. And then, silence. Nora awoke in total darkness, her body frozen and her senses overwhelmed by the silence. She struggled to move, but the weight of the eye's power held her captive. The cold, sinister presence of the shadow still lingered around her, as if waiting for something. "Help," she whispered, but her voice was swallowed by the void. Suddenly, a low, distorted laugh echoed around her, sending chills down her spine. A figure emerged from the shadows, a twisted, monstrous version of Principal Rosewood. "You thought you could escape the ice curse?" Rosewood's voice was unnaturally deep, filled with malice. "This is just the beginning, Nora. You've unleashed something far worse than you could ever imagine." The darkness swirled, and Nora's heartbeat raced as she realized the terrifying truth. She wasn't alone in this void. Something ancient, something far more powerful, was coming for her. A sudden flash of light blinded Nora, and she was violently pulled from the darkness back into the real world. Gasping for air, she found herself on the cold, damp ground outside Willow Ridge Academy. Her friends Alina and Mira knelt beside her, their faces pale with fear. "Nora, you're back!" Alina cried, helping her sit up. But Nora's eyes were wide with terror. She could still feel it, the dark entity lurking just beyond sight, waiting for its moment. "The eye, it's not done with me," Nora whispered, her voice trembling. Alina and Mira exchanged worried glances, but before they could respond, a deep, earth-shattering rumble echoed from the academy. The ground shook, and the building began to crack and crumble as an ominous force seemed to rise from within. Nora stood up, her heart pounding in her chest. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The ancient power tied to the eye had awakened, and now there was no turning back. "We have to leave," Nora said, her voice firm despite the terror gripping her. But it's not just the school anymore. It's everywhere. The sky darkened and the wind howled, as if the world itself was warning them of the coming storm. Nora stood frozen, watching in horror as the once solid walls of Willow Ridge Academy crumbled into dust, revealing a gaping, endless void. From the abyss, a monstrous hand, ancient and rotting, reached out toward her. She could feel the eye burning in her pocket, pulsing with malevolent energy. As the ground beneath her feet began to crack, she realized there was no escape. The dark force she had awakened was far more powerful than she could ever defeat. Just as the hand lunged forward, engulfing her in darkness, the last thing she heard was a whisper in her mind. "You were always meant to be mine."